Hello, hello. I know I got cut off on my last video that I did, but that's okay because we got to the end and we talked about the Stamp Act and how the colonists they boycotted and they petitioned their government, and the protests worked. Right, Parliament repealed the Stamp Act. Um, and so, first thing I'm going to talk about with this video is yes, it did work, but however, at the same time, and I'm going to read this right here in the book, it says, however, at the same time, it passed the Declaratory Act. Okay, so what was that? The Declaratory Act said that Parliament had total control over the colonies. So, what does that mean? Well, okay, so yes, the colonists they boycotted and they petitioned, and then the British government came back and said, "Okay, we're going to repeal or we're going to take away the Stamp Act." And I think the British government did not want to look weak. And so what did they do? They turned around and they declared the Declaratory Act, which said, "We Parliament have total control over you colonists." So it was sort of a way for them to set their authority and make sure that the colonists knew who the boss was. So when we're talking about what was it, well, the Declaratory Act was basically just a statement. But the question is, why did they do it? And I think they did that to let the colonies know that the king and Parliament was in control. Remember what Parliament is, guys. Parliament is the lawmakers in Britain during the time period. So the king does have a lot to say, but the king can't really do anything in Britain without the permission of Parliament. Parliament are the lawmakers. Okay, so Parliament and the king are in control of the colonies is basically what the Declaratory Act said. Okay, let's continue here. There's a great picture of the Boston Massacre that was made by Paul Revere, who was a silversmith in Boston. He did carvings and things like that, and did this artwork. And this really makes the British soldiers look pretty bad, right? Firing on a bunch of unarmed people. But we'll get to that later. Protests. All right, so protests spread. Let's talk about what's happening after all this. So we got the Proclamation of 1763. The British are saying, you can't move into the frontier. Got the Sugar Act. We're going to tax you on any sugar products coming into the colonies. And then we're also going to tax you more on things like newspapers and wills and licenses, right? So the colonists are kind of feeling the pressure from their government, and they pushed back, right? They're protesting right back as well. So there's tension there. I don't know if you guys can tell that or not, but there is tension there that's building between the people and its government. Okay, protest spread. I'm right at the top here. Let's read along with me, please. British officials sought a means of taxing the colonists in a way that would not anger them. So they're trying to think, okay, how can we tax our people without getting them angry? Under the Townshend Acts of 1767, Britain would no longer tax products or activities inside the colonies. It would only tax products brought in to the colonies. So imports, right? And that would be a tax import, which is called a duty, D-U-T-Y, duty. So they're saying, look, whatever you guys do in the colonies, we are not going to tax you. You guys can do whatever you want. We're not gonna touch those products. But anything that gets shipped into the colonies from outside, we're going to take a little cut of that, whatever you guys spend on that. You're gonna have to spend a little bit more, and the British government's going to take a little cut of that. Okay, so writs of assistance. So imagine now, anything that gets brought in on a ship is going to be taxed, right? So if you're a merchant, if you have a ship and you know that anything on your ship is going to get taxed, what can you do to get around that? Well, you could build a secret compartment on your ship and keep some of your stuff in there, And then when they board your ship and they try to look around for anything, they wouldn't see it. And that's called smuggling. Okay. And we'll talk about that in a second. So smuggling is illegal, right? It's you're not allowed to do it with shipping. So let's see what the Townshend Acts did. So the Townshend Acts set up a system to enforce new import duties, right? New import taxes to help customs officers find illegal goods. Those would be smuggled things that were hidden on ships. These customs officials were allowed to use writs of assistance. These are court orders. These are papers that allowed officials to make searches without saying what they're searching for. So essentially, these officials could just go onto your ship and just look around all they wanted. And you said, whoa, 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 what are you doing? And they would say, well, we have writs of assistance. We have these papers saying that we can board your ship if we want to. We don't have to even say what we're looking for. You can't do that anymore because they need warrants. Okay? Many colonists saw these writs and the searches they allowed as yet another violation of their rights. Now, what do you think? Do you think that that is a violation of their rights? And if you said yes, well, you would be right in line with those colonists. And that is why in our Constitution, when these colonists, these founding fathers made our Constitution, they looked back and they saw some of those things that the British did, like boarding their ships and searching them without having any reason to. They made sure that when they put those things in these Bill of Rights, the Bill of Rights in the Constitution, those are one of our basic rights that if they're going to search us, if the police are going to search us, if anyone's going to search us or take any of our stuff, they have to have a warrant that says what they're looking for and why they're looking for it. Okay. But that was after the fact, of course. So this is before the war and before the Declaration of Independence and before the Constitution. So this is one thing that made colonists mad was these writs of assistance. And this came right along with the Townshend Acts, right? So what did the Townshend Acts do? Let's recap here. They enforced taxes on imports, the duties, right? And they also gave customs officials those writs of assistance, those papers that allowed them to go and search those ships without really even saying why or what they're looking for. So who's in charge of this? Let's read. Charles Townshend, the official in charge of the British Treasury, also wanted to weaken the colonial assemblies. When the New York Assembly refused to supply money to house and feed soldiers under the Quartering Act, Parliament suspended the assembly. The colonists again reacted by boycotting British goods. Oh my gosh, things are going on here. So the New York lawmakers said, you know what? We're not going to give money to feed the British soldiers and to feed to feed the soldiers and to give them housing according to the Quartering Act said they had to. Like, we're done with that. We're not going to do it anymore. Okay. So what did Charles Townshend and the British government do? They said, well, New York, you're not allowed to have any more meetings. You're not allowed to organize anymore. You're not allowed to meet with your local government officials to make your own little laws. Nope, we're preventing you to do that. And since you don't want to help out with the Quartering Act, they said, we're just going to, you're not going to be able to meet with your local government officials anymore. The colonists, again, what did they do? The colonists are mad about this. They reacted by going back to another boycott of British goods. Okay. And I'm wondering how much time I've got here. But I think I'm going to stop and talk about the British massacre and the rest of the stuff in the next video. If you have any questions, please make sure you let me know. But hopefully that helps understanding what some of these laws and events that happened before the war happened and why the colonists were upset. Sorry. So we'll get you on the next video. Peace.